welcome back. We're doing another video. This time we're looking at Garrincha, one of my favorite players, and soon to be one of your favorite players. So not sure if you've heard of this guy or not. If you're Brazilian, you definitely have. In Brazil, he's considered to be their second best ever player, behind Pelé, of course. In fact, Pelé himself said that Garrincha was the best winger he ever saw, and it's pretty hard to disagree with that. So here's the format. Look, we're going to look at some footage, and then I'm going to sort of talk about a bit of his history. We're going to look at some photos and paint a bit of a picture of the guy, both the good and the bad. Now, we've got a lot of black and white footage. Please don't complain. Some of this is, 60 years old. Just be grateful we've even got the footage. You young people, you don't want to look at this black and white footage. Moving right along. Okay, so what do we know about this bloke? What was he famous for? He was a bit of a clown, always joking around, never took the game seriously, didn't really understand tactics or anything like that. Coach is always going insane. This guy won't listen to him, etc., etc. Um, he was low IQ and illiterate. He definitely wasn't like intellectually disabled, as I've heard some people saying. Definitely not true. Little story to just sort of paint a picture of him. 1950, he was a young boy at the time. Brazil were playing in the World Cup against Uruguay. It was essentially the final. The winner of the game wins the World Cup. So in his little town that he was living in, everyone set up speakers in the main plaza, listening to the game. He went off fishing, shooting birds and fishing and swimming and all those things he liked to do. Had no interest in the game. Comes back to the town. Everyone's devastated because they've just lost the World Cup. He couldn't understand why people were so upset. This guy loved football, but he just didn't care if they won or lost. And that's the truth. He was also famous for being a big drinker, drinking and smoking from a very young age. 12 years old, barbecues, getting drunk, all of that. Loved his cachaça. The Brazilians will know what cachaça is. Not my favorite drink, to be honest, but popular in Brazil. He wasn't much of a beer drinker, mainly just on the cachaça. He learned from his father. His father was a bit of a pisshead, is the truth, and he did not live to be very old. Garrincha wasn't much different. Got into trouble with the booze, ruined his relationships, ruined his life. Um, is the truth. Okay, let's start from the beginning. So Garrincha was born in 1933 in a town called Pau Grande. So I'll show you where that is. So this is South America. This is Brazil. Let's zoom in. Rio de Janeiro. Here's all the beaches. Leblon, Ipanema, Copacabana, Flamengo. Botafogo is where Garrincha played most of his career. All of these beach areas are really nice. Once you get into the city, it's quite shithouse, to be honest. But he was born in Pau Grande, which is right here. So yeah, basically just outside of Rio. Okay, let's move on. What else have I got for you? Yep, so this is him playing for Botafogo. He joined Botafogo in 1953, played most of his career there, looking pretty good. What else we've got? Oh, Pele. So this is a obviously photo when they were very young. Pele can't be even 20 years old there. Um, a lot of people said that they didn't really get along, but that is fake news. They had very different lives off the field, so they didn't really hang out off the field. But the fact is, they were good mates, as you can see from this photograph. So here's another one, quite blurry, so apologies for that. This was obviously taken much later in life. I think this was not long before Garrincha died, to be honest. Pretty sure this is the last time they saw each other. This is obviously a much older one, as in they were much younger when it was taken. Oh, I can't see what that is in front of him, but it looks like he's in a bar. As previously discussed, this guy was a pisshead. Oh, one more thing. Going back to Calais. So a lot of people know this, but I'll say it anyway. So there's a record. Pelé and Garrincha played together 40 times for Brazil, and Brazil never lost a game when both of them played, which is a pretty incredible stat when you think about it. It's hard to imagine anything like that happening today. So pretty special. All right, let's move along. So we haven't spoken much about the womanizing yet. So Garrincha was a notorious womanizer, terrible cheater, even by Brazilian standards. Um, He had at least 14 children with five different women, two of whom he married. At one point, he had his wife and kids in Palgrangi. He had the mistress in Rio, but then he was cheating on his mistress with this woman. This is actually Angelita Martinez. I don't know who she is. Is she famous? Evidently, she was famous back in Brazil in the 50s. So Garrincha had an affair with her. Eventually, it didn't work out because she caught him basically chatting up other women. So pretty shocking. Fact about Garrincha, he actually lost his virginity to a goat when he was 12 years old. Some of you think, oh my God, that's shocking. To be honest, it was pretty common in Brazil and some other parts of South America, also Colombia. It's just one of those things that happened in certain areas at a certain time. I'm not trying to be like a smartass about it, but that's just the reality. So that's the truth. That's the truth about what happened. Okay, so what else have we got? Ah, now we have Elza Soares. She was like the queen of samba, huge star in Brazil at the time. Obviously looking pretty good there. Um, she was the love of his life. Did he cheat on her? Yeah, but it definitely wasn't to the extent that he had with other women. It's fair to say that he was more or less faithful with her. However, she's looking pretty good there, but later in life, she turned into a bit of a disaster. Um, Obviously, lots of plastic surgery. I think she got boiling water on her face at some point and had to get that fixed up as well. Again, I'm not trying to be a smartass about it, but that's just the reality. Oh, she actually died recently. She died in 2022 at the age of 91. So she lived much older than Garincha. In fact, they both died on the same day, 20th of January, which is quite a coincidence. She obviously lived about 50 years longer than him, or 40 years longer. Okay, now we're chucking back on the video, and I'm going to talk about his life in a sort of chronological order. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll just get you a bit of an idea, and obviously enjoy the video as well. So he'd obviously joined Botafogo in 1953. In 1957, they won the Carioca Championship. What is the Carioca Championship? It's a back back before they had the Brazilian League. The individual states had their own leagues because it wasn't so easy to fly back then. You couldn't just fly from like Rio to Sao Paulo willy nilly. So they had state leagues, and only rarely would they pay teams from other states. So it was essentially his version of his league. It was the league that existed at the time. So won that with Botafogo. 1958, he was picked in the Brazil World Cup team to go to Sweden. They ended up winning it. Pele also played in that World Cup. Most people think that Pele was the best player in the team. Some people think that Garrincha was the best player in the team. The truth is that the best player in the team was a player called Didi, who you've never heard of. Unfortunately, I'll do a video on him one day. But he played in the team, Garrincha, and he played well. They won the World Cup in Sweden. The final was against Sweden, in fact, and they won that game. What did Garrincha do? Went back to Brazil, went back to his hometown, started kicking the ball around with his friends. So that was that was the kind of guy he was. He didn't want to celebrate with the celebrities or anything like that. Just went back home and played some football. Moving forward into 1959, we have the first of many alcoholic incidents that left a mark on his life. He was drink driving back in Palgrangi, and he hit someone that was crossing. Oh, you're kidding! The video's over. Okay, get rid of that. Chuck on the next one. Here we go. So he was drink driving, and he hit someone that was crossing a road. Coincidentally, the person he hit was his father. So small town, and yeah, coincidentally just hit his father who was crossing the street, and he did a runner and he ran away. People that saw the incident chased him and caught up to him. And he was basically drunk out of his mind, totally incoherent, had no idea what had happened. So 1 year before, won the World Cup, and here he is, drink driving, hitting his dad, and he's pissed as and has no clue what's going on. Mind you, he was still playing extremely well, so people weren't exactly complaining. Fast forward to 1961, won the Carioca Championship again, so the second time now. Obviously, very successful. 1961 is also when he met Elsa Suarez, his main lady, basically. 1962 was picked in the Brazil World Cup team again. They went to Chile and won the World Cup. Pele was actually injured. He might have played like one or two games at the beginning of the tournament, but he essentially wasn't a feature of the tournament. Garrincha stepped up, best player in the tournament, absolute star. Um, yeah, carved up, absolutely carved up in 1962. Also won the Carioca Championship with Botafogo that year, so that was the third time he'd won the league with Botafogo. It was actually the last time he won the league with Botafogo, and I think he was late 20s at this point. He'd already been at Botafogo for nearly 10 years. And despite being the star of the World Cup, it was pretty much the last time he was seen at his peak. So after winning the World Cup in '62, he never really hit his peak again, apart from basically flashes of brilliance. Okay, so let's move forward. 1963, yet another drunken incident. He was driving with Elsa, crashed a car. Elsa was injured, not horrifically, but slightly injured, you could say. Definitely not good. And then 11 days later, he injured a boy while he was driving. The boy was on a bike. I'm not totally sure. Not clear whose fault it was, but I'm willing to bet that Garrincha was pissed and not driving properly. He also came into financial trouble at this time. His wife basically got a huge divorce settlement out of him, and both he and Elsa were like pretty skint at that time. Garrincha's hardly playing, so he's basically just playing for money at this point. Broke, live week to week. Can't really play the game. I mean, Botafogo pretty much use him for exhibition games when they travel to other countries. People pay tickets to see him, but essentially he's too injured and overweight to really perform in the league. He's playing less and less. He's drinking more and more. Long story short, fell out with Botafogo, was no longer playing with them. In 1966, his career got a lifeline, and he went to Corinthians, which is down in Sao Paulo. I don't think he really liked Sao Paulo, but a job's a job. He went there and played for Corinthians. Uh, Alcohol was obviously a big problem at this point. He's waking up in the morning shaking, needing a drink. He's pretty cooked. Married Elsa at this point, so no longer having an affair. It's legitimately married her now. Lost a lot of popularity in Brazil at that time. Elsa was considered the home wrecker. Um, you know, they were pretty traditional back then. It was considered a big deal. 1966, the World Cup rolls around. World Cup in England. Brazil had a shocking World Cup that time. It was a bit of a joke. He was picked in the team, but there was no way he should have been in the team. Um, I could go on and on, but yeah, that team was a joke. He scored a free kick, to be fair, in the World Cup, but he couldn't run. Yeah, it just didn't make any sense at all. He was pretty out of shape at that point. 1967, they moved back to Rio together. Elsa was getting continuously worried about his drinking. Not much she could do about it, though. Short time afterwards, he joined Flamengo in 1968. Really just playing exhibition games. Like no one thought that he was capable of actually properly playing in the league, but there he was playing for Flamengo on the occasional game for a bit of money. Um, the next chapter is where it gets a little bit dark. So 1969, he actually killed Elsa's mum in a car crash. And this is probably the turning point where it's like he's no longer just a heavy drinker. He's actually a proper alcoholic. He got deeply depressed, as you would after killing your mother-in-law in a car crash. Tried to kill himself a few times. It was pretty clear at this point that it wasn't going to end well um, with him. Interestingly, they actually moved to Italy. Elsa's career as a singer sort of took off in Italy, so they moved over there. They were in Rome. So not many people know that they actually lived in Rome in a time. But yeah, Garrincha constantly drinking. 1970 rolls around. Obviously wasn't in the Brazil World Cup team, but he was watching it on the telly. But he was basically just watching the screen in a stupor. Had no interest. Didn't celebrate when goals were scored. So anyway, Elsa was making some money at this point, but she wasn't really sharing it with Garrincha because he would just get on the piss at any opportunity that he could. So he was actually walking around the streets of Rome, picking up like sicky butts and smoking them. It was all pretty degenerate. Their relationship was starting to break down at this point. Had some domestic incidents. Elsa scratched his face. He punched her and broke her teeth. Um, Takes two to tango. I'm not just saying that he was just bashing her unprovoked or anything, but clearly got out of hand. 1974 rolls around. They're back in Brazil at this point. Had no interest in watching the World Cup. Doesn't even watch it. Had no idea it was on. Absolutely cooked at this point. 1975, incredibly, he got Elsa pregnant. And he actually, I won't say he stopped drinking, but he definitely started drinking a lot less because, you're about to have another baby with a woman that you're actually going to take it seriously, as opposed to the other 13 children that you sort of didn't give a shit about. So yeah, he was getting off the booze a little bit. But yeah, basically within the first couple of years of the baby's life, it started to unravel. 1977. By that time, he was drinking out of control again. Wasn't good with the baby. Um, Mishandling it a little bit. Elsa wasn't too happy about it. Basically, they got, oh my God, the video's over. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go. So yeah, wasn't treating the baby too well. Obviously drunk, got into a domestic. I think he slapped Elsa. She took the baby and ran. He found her and then assaulted her. She never pressed charges because he would have went to jail. Um, if she'd done so, obviously still in love with him. But at this point, she had no choice but to leave him. And this is really the final chapter in his life because he's lost everything now. No money, no woman, drinking himself to death. It's pretty dark at this point. He did find another girlfriend at this point, but it wasn't good. Um, Late 70s, sort of coming to the end of his life. 1979 was taken to the hospital on many occasions, actually, but on one occasion he had what's called delirium tremens, which is not like shaking, it's more like hallucinations. He thought spiders were trying to kill him. And incredibly, after that incident, he still didn't think that he was an alcoholic. So hard to explain that one. Oh, and I just remembered, I didn't finish showing you all the photos. So this is a photo taken pretty late in life. He was playing for a team called Millonarios, which is basically they just played exhibition games. He obviously needed the money. You can tell he's late 40s, pretty close to death at this point. This bloke's called Jaume Santos. He's a Brazil legend. So yeah, there was a lot of legendary players playing in that team. He was good friends with all of them. Not looking too happy there. This is the infamous photo at Carnival 1980. So you guys know the carnival, all the samba dances, all the parades, everyone's dancing. He was famous because he was sitting on the float just like that, like a zombie. Pele was actually in the crowd, tried to call out to him. He didn't hear him. Everyone's wondering what's up with this guy. He's totally cooked. Most people think he was drunk out of his mind, but he actually wasn't drinking at all. He was taking some kind of drug treatment for the alcoholism, and it put him into like a zombified state, as some drugs can obviously do. So not drunk at this point, but he was yeah, drugged up on the medication. And yeah, this was an infamous image at the Carnival 1980. Everyone's wondering what the hell is going on with this guy. He's cooked. So let's keep going. We're nearly done here. So we're in 1980. He actually did manage to stop drinking for 7 months, which was pretty incredible. Looked like he'd sort of turned a corner, but reality is he just started drinking again. It was all the good work came undone. He was assaulting his girlfriend at the time. It wasn't good. Fast forward to the end of his life, which is like 1982. He died in January 83. He was hospitalized 8 times in the last 10 months of his life, so very frequent. Um, Former teammates would visit him in the hospital and he wouldn't recognize them. He basically had dementia at this point, basically brain damage from all the alcohol. One of the final incidents was basically tried to kill his girlfriend at the time with a stick or a piece of wood or something. Police rocked up at the house and they found him like naked and confused. Um, so yeah, by the end he was just a yeah, absolute yeah, wasn't in a good way at the end. So it's a pretty tragic ending to a life of an incredible player and you know a good person apart from the booze. So yeah, he died at age 49 from a pulmonary edema. And if you know what that is, then you know more than me. All right, so let's just actually look at some video. We've got a couple minutes here. So yeah, this is what I love. I mean, he always does this stuff, bamboozling people. The first time I watched it, it blew my mind. I mean, yeah, it's just poetry, just poetry. Let's watch a little bit. Sorry about the blurry footage. Don't complain, guys. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, oh. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Oh, what's he gonna do? What's he gonna do? Oh, what a legend. What a legend. How much longer we got? We probably won't watch to the end. It's another 30 seconds or so. Okay, come on, mate. Do something interesting. All right. A goal's a goal, I suppose. Goal's a goal. He's pretty happy about it. What else we got? Yep, very happy as you can see. Oh yeah, there you go. There he is at the carnival. Zombie at the carnival. Yep, he was cooked. Yeah, at least he's waving to the fans. Gee, I wish this was high quality footage. HD allegedly. Carnival Sunday, 17th of Feb. Ah, this is the funeral. Oh, on the way to the funeral, sorry. There you go. All the people up on the bridge. So yeah, when he died, it was a big deal. Nation in mourning kind of thing. There you go. There you go. The great man is dead. So that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I certainly did. It's a tragedy that not many people know enough about this player. So I just wanted to spread the word and hopefully we can remember the greats and he won't be forgotten.